Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and this is my story. Haven't done one of these my stories for a while, so I thought, I know the weather is lovely and one should be out and about, but I wanted to continue with this and not let this strand disappear, because I know some people have been fascinated with the story and I'm so thrilled to be able to tell it. Now, if you recall, I think the last episode of my story was I was talking about the time when I set up a mime theatre company, and we put on a load of videos. We put on a mime show called Tiny Aeroplanes. People have been asking me for photographs, and all the way through this my story, by the way, people have been asking for, have I got photographs and all this. And sadly, a lot of these got lost. It was in the days of analog, and they are somewhere in suitcases somewhere, but I can't immediately find them, so apologies for that. This was a period in my life when I'm now in my mid to late 20s, and I'd met my wife, or my future wife, who I'm now divorced, but at the time I met Dawn, who through doing the Tiny Aeroplanes, in actual fact, and got married, got a flat and had children. I'm going to tell you about that in a separate video as one thing. I want to just continue with some of the performance stuff that I was doing at this same time that has very much influenced me in the things that I do. So this is about a character today. It's about a character called Percy Peeverly, which was an invention of mine. So my dad, who I had lived with when he was in Goring, because I'd come from a separated family, as you may remember, he'd always wanted me to go into his business. He'd always wanted me to go and get City and Guilds education like he did, to get a technical schooling. And I left school at 15, as you know, if you've been watching these, and apart from going to mime school, have no real qualifications in the world. And I think it was a cause of embarrassment, or perhaps he was just sad that I never went on and got certification, education of, you know, that sort of thing. And he was always insistent on me doing that. And I was passionate about what I do, and I was passionate that I would follow my dream. But he ran a business that used to make aerials, all sorts of aerials, not TV aerials. He would make aerials for aeroplanes that would go into the life preservers, into those life buoy things that you wear, life jackets, I suppose they're called. He would make these aerials that once they hit water, they would send out a bleep. So if you were ditched in the sea, you would have a bleep that would pinpoint where you are. He designed these aerials. He was a very clever man, my dad. He also had direction finding aerials that he used to make for putting on tracking for animals. He used to do stuff for marine boats and covert aerials for the police. And so he had dealings with a chap who I think worked in the army. Well, he worked in various different services, but one particular contact that he had worked in the army. And I think he was bemoaning to him that his son was, you know, floundering and trying to get into the entertainment business, but wasn't really getting anywhere. And this chap said, and I had met him. He'd been round at my dad's house, and I had met him, and you know, he knew the score. And he said, I possibly got a contact that you could follow up. So he put my dad in touch with this chap called Richard. I can't remember his surname. I've been trying to rack my brains to remember what his surname was, but he was a very lovely bloke. And he worked at an outfit called the SSVC, which is the Services Vision and Sound Corporation, based at Gerrard's Cross in Berkshire, I think it is. And part of the BFBS, which was the British Forces Broadcast Service. So soldiers overseas British soldiers overseas and stationed in places like Germany and Cyprus and wherever would have their own radio service which would serve them. And there was a TV version of this, which was the SSVC, Services Sound and Vision Corporation. And they did, for the families of the soldiers who were stationed overseas, who might be stationed there for a couple of years or what have you, and so the wives would be there with their children, they did a children's television service. Now, we're going back into the days just before satellite television was a thing, and well before the internet, of course, and we only really had terrestrial television. There were 4 channels over here in the UK. And so this was a time when they had the license to record programmes that were transmitted from the BBC, so children's programmes like Blue Peter, various cartoons, this sort of thing, and then they would repackage them with their own presenters, which they did at Gerrard's Cross at the SSVC studios, and then they would send that out or broadcast it to the stations, Germany and Cyprus. Now there was quite a lot of troops, you know, it was going out to, I don't know how many thousands, but there was thousands of people who would watch these things. And so they would have a sort of a children's broom cupboard type programme. So the presenter would be sitting there in the way that Philip Schofield would have done back in the days of the broom cupboard on the BBC, and would have letters coming in on postcards saying, "Dear so-and-so, it's my birthday, can you wish me a happy birthday?" on what have you. And they would do this sort of thing for the kids and have a bit of fun, and then they would link to a programme. Well, they were looking for potential new presenters, and so through this contact through my dad, I had an audition. So I went up, I was a bit nervous about this, but I went up to, but excited as well. So I went up to have the audition to see if I would be a suitable presenter. And I met this Richard, whatever his name is, very nice chap. And he took me down to the studio, and the studio was the first time I'd encountered a fully automatic studio. It had a camera, you had the main studio, which was just a small room really, with a backdrop, a flat backdrop behind you with a whole load of postcards and that's birthday cards and that sort of thing, and a simple desk. And the presenter would sit there, and there was an automated camera which was operated in the control room, which was to one side. And so you could focus in, you could zoom in, and I think there were 2 cameras, so you could get a close-up and a wide shot, or a shot of the backdrop of the pictures and things that children had sent in, children's of the army families had sent in. So I did this audition, and I read these, you know, simple link stuff like, well, that was Blue Peter, wasn't that fantastic? Very interesting to see the elephant there. Now we've got a card from little Rosie Jones who says, it's my birthday, all that kind of stuff. But the names of the places they were coming from, these were for, as I say, troops that were in Germany and Cyprus. And so the names I found, as anybody who's watched me doing the Vobes show and anything where even on the Board Explorer, I often get the names wrong and pronunciations wrong, and people are continually correcting me. And I made a complete fool of myself trying to say the names of these things, of these places in Germany and Cyprus. It's just not what I'm good at. So we did the audition, went back to the chap's office and Richard's office, and I could tell it had gone badly, and I had been very nervous and it hadn't really gone well, and I just think that it was going to be, well, thanks very much, we'll call you, don't call us. I had the presence of mind to bring something with me, and when we went back up to the office and we were just having the wind down chat, and I could tell that they weren't terribly interested, I said, oh, I did bring this mask with me. Now, of course, masks these days have a different connotation with, you know, the masks for COVID. I'm talking about a half mask, a character mask. And this mask had big goggly eyes and a long nose, and it would come down to here. And somewhere I've got photographs of this character, and I will I will at some point show you a whole load of pictures and stuff when I get round to sifting through it all. Anyway, I had this mask and I said, oh, this is a character, sort of an over-the-top character. Maybe you could be interested in it. And he didn't really understand what I was talking about. So I said, well, it's probably best if I demonstrate the character. He's called Percy Peeverly. So I put on the mask and I put on this old wig that I had. And suddenly I transformed into this rather crazy character who, without the mask, it's not going to be the same, but spoke sort of, oh, hello there. I'm Percy Peavely. Yeah, no, it's very exciting to be here. Yeah, because I've got this very exciting idea. I could host a program. Yes, I could. Anyway, he was this very sort of excitable, crazy, I don't know what you would call him, unusual character with this honking great nose and these big goggly eyes. Anyway, I must have done something because Richard, whatever his name is, he said, oh, yes, wait a minute, we could maybe do a program using that character. So anyway, I went away. We hadn't really formulated anything, but then he came back to me and back in those days by letter, and he said, I've been thinking, we want to do a cartoon program and maybe we can use this character to link the cartoons. So me being me said, well, why don't we make him down in the basement of the SSVC, and he's a bit of a cheeky character, so he could link these cartoons and each program could have a bit of a theme. And I said, also, I'll build a set. So we'll build this sort of set because, as I said before, they just had this flat screen behind them. And I said it would be great to have a desk and a whole load of junk that you would have down in your basement, loitering around, so that he can muck about with all these props and then link to these cartoons. Well, the program had 3 cartoons that I needed to link to. So that made, must have been, I think, well, there were 3 cartoons, but 4 links. So, yes, I can't remember. Well, there should have been 5 links there because you would have had... Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So each program would have a theme. So, for example, one of the themes would be that Percy Peavely is setting up a library, but he's only got 1 book, which he's actually nicked from his boss, who we made a character called Mr. Todd. And Mr. Todd you never heard, you never saw, but you heard him on the phone. He would ring up at least once in the show and you would just hear this, oh yes, Mr. Todd. Oh, yeah, no, I'm doing that now, Mr. Todd. And Mr. Todd would be on his back all the time telling him to, you've got to sweep up the basement, or you've got to clean this, or you've got to polish the so-and-so. Oh yes, no, I was doing that, Mr. Todd. I definitely, oh dears, Mr. Todd, I'm in ever so much trouble. We better go and watch a cartoon while I sort out the so-and-so. And so it would sort of go like, it would go like that really. Anyway, we did 3 series of this in the end. They paid me 60 quid an episode, which was, you know, not really very much. And I was in my mid-20s, but it was a break. It was my chance. So we did one, so I think the first series was called Percy Peavely's World of Cartoons. And there's me linking these cartoons. The second series, we slightly improved the set, which I built at no extra cost to them and just brought up on the roof rack of my car and brought it up to SSVC. And I think we did it over 2 days or something like that. We filmed all the links and then they packaged it up, which was great fun, I have to say. And I think they did have a cameraman. They booked a cameraman to film because I would be scurrying around as this sort of character, trying to remember my lines. And I would write the script. I wrote the script, whereas before that it was just all quite free-flowing. I wrote a pretty prepared script with each link. They were only about 1.5 minutes long, the links, and then you would go to the cartoon. So, and it was, the kids loved it. I used to get mail from the kids in Germany and Cyprus, pictures of Percy they would draw and send them in, going, I love Percy Peavely, and all. It was, and they would send me this stuff and they say, oh, here we are, we've had some more mail for you. And they loved it, it went really well. So the third series, they said, would you do a third one? I said, yes, of course I'll do a third one. And I said, have you got any other ideas for that? And I said, why don't we put him on a pier, on a seaside pier? Percy Peavely's Pier Time Fun, I think it was called. And I said one link we would film on the pier, the others would be in the studio, which was supposedly his office, you know, as the entertainment manager, and he was organising entertainment. So that was it. So we spent a day filming all the middle links, the third link I think it was, on the pier, and we booked with the West Sussex Worthing Council rather to film on Worthing Pier, and they you know, the SSVC negotiated that. So we spent this day and we filmed all these links of Percy Peeverly in his wig. He was setting up a train service on the pier. There was a fire alarm testing going on. So again, it was, oh, hello everybody, I'm Percy Peeverly. Welcome to my pier time fun. Oh, it's going to be very exciting today because we've got to do the fire alarms. Oh, I'm a bit nervous. I hope we don't have a real fire. And we made things like big cardboard cutout flames, and we had a smoke machine. I mean, it was just very silly, very silly. It was great fun. And then we go into the studio, built the set again the third time round, and then we filmed all of this, and it went out, and the kids really loved it. Well, at the end of that third series, satellite television had now come, and that was the third year running, I think we did this. And because satellite television was the thing, they didn't need anymore the services of Percy Peeverly, which was a shame. And I thought this was a great idea, and I wanted to pitch this to television, other companies, but it never really happened. And like so many things in my career, they get to a point and then, you know, like so many things, it was an idea, it worked really well, it was of its time, probably wouldn't work now, but who knows. And it was just great fun doing that, and it brought some money in. Not a lot, but it brought some money in, and it taught me a hell of a lot about television, filming, packaging things together, and all of that. And it was great working with the team, and they were all such fun. And I think the other presenters who did the normal broom cupboard type stuff were somewhat envious of the fun and games that we used to get up to as Percy Peeverly's World of Cartoons. So it was it was hilarious. Anyway, so that was another little thing, that period in my life. And then after that, it sort of fizzled, you know, and I thought, oh, I'm going to make it. And so many times you think in one's career as a performer or as an entertainer, you think this is it. This is it's going to snowball, and then it slows down and it doesn't, and then suddenly out of the blue something else happens. It's amazing how it works. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow, like and subscribe. Become a patron and support what I do. Very much appreciated. I'll be out and about in the great outdoors again, but just wanted to get another of my stories out to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye.